Good evening, New Brunswick, and welcome to Voice of the Province. I'm your host, Adam Harris. For more than a decade, this show has been a town hall connecting you, the viewer, and the politicians of the province. If you'd like to be part of the discussion, give us a call. The number will be on the screen when we open the phone lines. You can also send your questions to our Twitter account at VOTP. My guest tonight is the latest man to throw his hat into the PC leadership race, Jake Stewart. Jake, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Adam. It's good to be here.
So let's start with a broad question. Why? Why did you decide to do this?
I looked at it for a year and a half, to be frank, and when I noticed the other candidates to start coming out and making their announcements, none of them talked about the issues that I thought were the biggest issues in New Brunswick. All governments make changes, with the best of intentions, but there's certain issues that all governments are avoiding. And for me, they were my issues too, because the people told me everywhere I went, these are the biggest issues. So I had to run.
So let's go into the issues then. What is the biggest issue that others won't touch that you are?
The biggest issue overall that's underlying them all is that I'm different. I hear that politicians are all the same, governments are all the same, Liberals and Conservatives are the same. Everywhere I go, I hear the same thing. And I wanted to say that I'm different than the other candidates because I know what the biggest issues are. And number one, I'll acknowledge them. And number two, I'll offer solutions. And number three, I'll fix them. Number one, language policy. That's a huge issue in New Brunswick. It's huge because we have people everywhere that believe the practices, initiatives, rules and regulations put in place predominantly in the last maybe 25 years have started to divide the province. And I want to make something very clear. I'm inspired by the Official Languages Act. I'm deeply inspired by equal opportunity, and I'm even more inspired about being the only official bilingual province in Canada. These are great initiatives. Some of them came in over almost 50 years ago, and they came in their infancy with a real goal of equality. It was all about the Francophone people having services in their language and getting permits, licenses, going to the hospital, Service New Brunswick. A great goal. But somewhere along the line, they became too regulated. Policies were made, policy after policy, and now you've got this commissioner, this office. Does anyone even remember the former commissioner? Most people hardly even remember his name. There's a reason. The new commissioner has literally become so aggressive in the province that the mandate of that office is now seen as witch hunting, language police, language audits. You've got an old man in a parking lot and a veteran getting fired, and it's just never ending. And it's a real negative attribute of our province, and I think that office has to go. So that's one of the first things I would do. And once it was gone, I would replace it with an office of equal opportunity. Just a small office that focuses on equal opportunities and equal rights for everybody in New Brunswick, regardless of culture or language.
It sounds like you have more of a problem, though, with the current language commissioner, Ms. D'Entremont, and not so much the office. I mean, you first prefaced your thought there with the name of the last commissioner. I guess he is that he didn't create the I guess what you're saying the current commissioner is. So why do you need to completely replace the office altogether then?
Because it's become so tainted. It's a really divisive subject in New Brunswick, and I think the only way to settle that is to get rid of it. I really believe that, and I don't think, there's no way that office was created to do what it's doing now. I agree with you, and I do agree that the previous commissioner did not create division like the one we have now, but I think we need to focus more on equality, on equal opportunity, and that's what I want to focus on.
The last election saw the Liberals win the majority of the seats, but those seats were majority in the north, and the Progressive Conservatives won a large part, almost all the southern seats. You're in Miramichi, and you're right along that line. But is there not concern that if you run on language as a central issue, you may not be able to bring in the Francophones needed for the Progressive Conservatives to return to power?
That's a good question. At the announcement that you came to last week, there were probably 8 or 9 Acadians that were at the announcement. One of them is going to be a central figure on my campaign team, and when the announcement was over, I wanted to get a sense if I'd offended anyone. You know what I mean? Because I do have strong principles, and I was going to stand on them, but I needed to know, like, is this offensive? And what the Acadians told me at my announcement is that the fact that I was pro being bilingual, pro the Official Languages Act, inspired by both of them, as well as equal opportunity, that there was no real threat, that I wasn't a threat to them because I wasn't talking about constitutional items and Charter of Rights or rights. I'm talking about the regulations and rules surrounding the bilingual quotas. That's another belief in the public that English unilingual people and some Francophone unilingual New Brunswickers as well are having a hard time getting jobs in the public service. And public service people, I've talked to hundreds of them, thousands even. They're scared for their jobs. They're worried they tell me they can't get a promotion if they're not bilingual. They tell me they can't get the same pay raises, and I hear these things. And when you ask for these things from the departments, you don't get them. You don't get lists of the information that people want. You just can't get it on that subject. And so I know that language is divisive, that's true. But you must acknowledge that it is an issue in New Brunswick because I hear it every single day. The people built my platform. That's another thing that I might put out. I didn't just wake up and jot down a few big items. As an MLA of 6 years, these are actually the items that I hear every single day. Language is only one of them, by the way, but I hear them every day. And at some point, like, the people are right, and as an MLA, you do a disservice to them if you don't recognize, this is an issue. I hear this at the coffee shop and at the ball field and the arena, at church. I hear it everywhere. So you have to focus on the big issues for the people, because at the end of the day, what's in the public interest is what MLAs should work for.
You said, I guess in your speech and then I guess earlier on the show, that people need to still be served in the language of their choice. How do you reconcile that with people unable to get jobs? If you have to have jobs that are bilingual on the frontline services, undoubtedly there will be unilingual Anglophones and Francophones who won't be qualified for those positions.
Maybe it's an equitable job distribution of those, English and French. Maybe it's some sort of equitable percentage we could come up with. I'm throwing that out there because I don't have the magic wand, because I can't get an idea of the statistics. And these are things I've asked for, and I don't really get results on it. But it's the people, remember. The people are telling me, Jake, I can't apply for this job because I'm not qualified for it. And I mean, if you go to university to become a nurse, and you go to a 4-year science degree or Bachelor of Nursing degree, and then you become a registered nurse, and then you can't get a job because you can't speak French or English, then you couple that with the fact that French immersion is not even offered in rural New Brunswick. A free society can't do that to its people. The public service just happens to be, regrettably, one of the largest employers in the province. You can't not educate your population and then put standards on employment that they could never meet. So it's just not fair for anybody.
So would you mandate immersion in all schools if you became Premier?
Well, what I would look at, I did a language motion. You probably remember a few months back, or in March anyway. One of the biggest issues with the official bilingualism is it looks like it was never intended for the citizens to actually become officially or bilingual. Like in the 70s and 80s, it looked like more of an asset on a job description, and it was never the goal of the Act or the province to ensure that the public became bilingual. And what I hear is that like under 7 or 8% of Anglophones are bilingual. And I'm not certain on the Francophone side. It seems like maybe 50 or 60% of them or more, again, is actually considered bilingual. And I just, like I say, I think it's a huge issue. And I don't think the government, by creating these employment standards where some people can't qualify, it's unfair, especially to the areas that feel like they're disadvantaged. Like look at Shippagan, for example. I've been to Shippagan. They don't speak English very well down there. Same as Doketown and Blackville. We didn't even have French immersion. So I've just given you 2 or 3 communities in the province where both sides lack the other language. And then we're asking them to go to universities, pay out $60,000, $70,000, become educated, and then they can't get a job because they're not bilingual. in a province that never mandated it or offered it.
So, I mean, again, to the question, should they not offer it? I mean, if you
Yeah.
value an official bilingual province, should Doketown not have French immersion? Should Shippagan not have English immersion?
Well, from what I understand, English immersion doesn't exist. I've tried to find evidence of that, but absolutely. I wrote a motion on this, and what I said, and I stand on this too, it should almost be a citizen's right in New Brunswick to have equal opportunity of access to both official languages. So if Blackville School or Doketown or Shippagan or any of these schools that don't have a real great opportunity to learn the other, they should have it. I don't think it should be forced, because then some kids maybe might struggle and it might affect them in their other language. So I think there's measures in there, but what I would tell you is how much cheaper it would actually be today. You see, in the 1970s, in the 1980s, it was considered impractical to put French immersion all throughout, rural New Brunswick. So they didn't do it in many cases, and it was seen as extra staff, more infrastructure, bricks and mortar, money. It was seen as a huge expense. Mm-hmm. And at the time, being bilingual was an asset on a job description, where today it's a requirement. It's a requirement, I've heard 80+% of the time. And that makes it unfair when if 70% of the province is English and less than 10% of them are bilingual, that creates an unfairness. That's what it creates. So I think that using telecollaboration, video conferencing, the internet, all these new apps, you could literally take Caracat, for instance, and they could be wired into Blackville, and both of those communities could learn both languages together using the internet. So like today, it's far cheaper to learn another language.
You said in your speech when you sought announced officially your nomination, you talked about unnecessary duplication. Explain that to me. I mean, what is unnecessarily duplication, I guess, as related to language?
Yeah, sure. Well, the public tells me that there's a lot of duplication. They believe that we know that we're printing everything twice, but I believe in that. I mean, we're going to need that, and one day we'll be far more digital, and whatever cost is associated with that, it won't even probably be an issue in the future. The duplication is like medical equipment, for instance. Like if one hospital is specializing in something and they're getting a piece of technology, I don't think another one should automatically say, well, we need that too. I don't agree with that. I think we have to look at, we have to get rid of that type of duplication. I think that's one area that I'd be focused on.
But at the same time, you still agree with two separate health authorities?
Yeah, I think that can work. Yeah, I think it can work. I mean, there's a lot of people that tell me they'd like to see one, but I think that can work. Right now, I think it can work.
I mean, the Allward government, I believe, signed an agreement to catch up Francophone hospitals to levels of equipment that Anglophone hospitals have. So you would be against that?
I mean it when it's a specialized piece of equipment. So let's say for instance, the Moncton Hospital, they're going to get a CT scanner, state of the art, made by Toshiba or somebody. Mm. And then the Dumont the next day says, well, we want the same thing. I don't think the government and the taxpayers of New Brunswick should be tied into those wants. And I think that's where the duplication comes in, because just maybe you don't need to have two of the same thing. Do you know what I mean? Because you're paying double, and you're not going to utilize a piece of equipment that's going to be used less time because now we put another one down the street, and vice versa. Whoever gets it first, I think that's enough. You know what I'm saying?
I also want your opinion on the dual buses system as well. I mean,
Absolutely.
That's another area where would you respect a court decision if it came out that there needed to be two separate buses systems? Yeah,
well, I mean, we have to look and see what they say. That's sort of what I'm waiting for. But on that issue, I can tell you where the core of the public's displeasure, I can tell you where it is. I represent Bay St. Anne and Bay de Vin. Hmm. Bay St. Anne is a French community, and Bay de Vin is English. They have all their own buses, and they have their own schools, and they're probably, 15 miles apart, or maybe a little more again. It works well. What the public is really upset over is when you have a residential street and you have English and French children who are best friends. They play baseball together, they go to church together, they have sleepovers, birthday parties. They're buddies, okay? And then their two schools are two different schools, and they're down the street. The schools are a mile apart from each other. So the problem the public has, and this is a problem I have with it too, how does a parent explain to a 7-year-old why they're not allowed to sit on their best friend's bus? How do you do it? Like, I'm a parent. I have 4 kids. So, I'd like to think I have a bit of skin in the game in the province. And that's why, another reason why I'm running. But if I had a school right beside Blackville and kids on my street were waiting and saying, oh, that's my friend's bus, but I can't go on that bus. Like, how do you explain it? I thought about that. I thought about it recently, and I don't know how you'd explain that to a child. You know what I mean? If I were Premier of New Brunswick, when at this point in time, I would have driven down to Kent County, which is where I believe the first sort of issue surfaced. Mm-hmm. As Premier, I would have requested to meet with all of those parents, whether together or individually, and it would have been a very simple question. Is this an issue?
Should cost be a component of that discussion as well?
Cost should always be a component when it's taxpayers' dollars. And you've got to look at everything, but New Brunswick's always, we have bad habits too, but cost is going to be an issue for some. For some people, it's only the cost that's an issue. They just say, we can't afford it. And I look at that, and that's a good point. That's a good point, but it's the situation that I'm discussing with you now. That's the situation that really has the public irritated. When there's 1 or 2 kids and the bus has to drive by them, and no one can grasp that. And I think money is definitely used in that example, but for me, I look at the more human example of it. How would I explain to my child that why he can't sit on that bus? Because children have questions. I get 400 questions a day just from my 4 children, but I don't know how you'd explain it. It would be really difficult, I think, right, as a parent. And I just think that as Premier, he should have gone down there, met with those parents, and in fact, if they told him it wasn't a big issue, which is what I've heard most of them have said, he should have left it the same.
Jake, we're going to go to our first commercial. We'll be back on Voice of the Province right after this break. And we're back on Voice of the Province with Jake Stewart. He's the MLA for Southwest Miramichi Bay Devin, and also the most recent candidate for the Tory leadership race. Jake, another interesting, at least to me, a platform plank that you brought forward in your launch dealt with the elimination of the provincial income tax for small and medium-sized businesses. That's something that I guess I would even say goes against your party's conventional thinking. Where did the idea come from?
The idea comes from the restaurants and the small businesses, like all of them, the ones that are in my riding, the people I talk to in New Brunswick. Small business owners today are struggling, and New Brunswick was founded on small businesses. And what we've done, you see, is we've catered to special interests and big business for a long time. And if you look at the history of the province, we've always had small businesses. So what I'd like to do, I'd like to eliminate that. And I think that helps us when it comes to poverty, because they'll have a little bit more money. The business owners, they might hire 1 extra individual. That person can now feed their children and so forth and so forth. I think it would benefit, and I don't mean picking and choosing, like the bureaucrats do a poor job of picking and choosing, which companies. So I want to do it right across the board. You're talking farming, the restaurants, small manufacturing businesses, every one of them across New Brunswick.
Right. Now, I guess you said you're going to pay for this by eliminating corporate welfare subsidies that way. Is there a threshold, though, where the company has to be what's a medium-sized company? Who would receive this, who wouldn't?
It's a good question. I'm working with people right now, the best and the brightest, on that issue, and the exact threshold for, say, gross income, I'm not exactly have the number right now, so I'm still looking at that part of it.
Mm-hmm. So, but would it be equal to offset what government spends in terms of subsidies, or?
Well, I looked at it, and it looks like it'd be about, we spend about 300 million, 250 to 300 million annually on corporate welfare. It's like this subsidy strategy. We've been just handing out loans, training grants, payroll subsidies to the large companies, large corporations, multinational, multi-million dollar companies. They don't need our money. They don't, though. And that's the problem. Like when the banks do like a cold-blooded analysis of projects, and when they see proposals, and when they do lending, and the province, we've been picking and choosing, cherry picking winners and losers, and it's always the big businesses. Like, for instance, the government subsidized mining jobs last year. I thought that was just disgraceful, because mining companies, some of them are very wealthy companies. We don't need to be looking after their payroll. So I wanted to help the small and medium-sized businesses, which we see everywhere, the restaurants, the hair salons, the small manufacturing companies, little farms. Like these are the people that we need to help in New Brunswick, because when they stay running, it's the backbone of the province.
The Glant government just recently, lured some more IBM jobs to the province using payroll subsidies. A couple hundred jobs were announced. The Alward government brought Siemens to New Brunswick with a similar subsidy structure. So, if that's what it takes to get these companies here against other jurisdictions, I mean, how do you say no to that?
That's a mug's game. That is just a mug's game is what it is. It's a race to the bottom. And the Atlantic provinces have been doing it for 30 or 40 years. PEI, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick are trying to out-bribe each other to lure these companies here. When the money dries up, a lot of the time, the companies leave, and their hand is out again before they're leaving. And if the government doesn't put something back in their hand, then it's the government's fault. The people lose every time. Just a simple, it's a mug's game. It's never going to work. So as far as Siemens, IBM, great companies, both of them have a great record, but we don't need to be paying their payroll. And why should the province of New Brunswick be training their employees? They've trained their employees. We have universities and colleges where we might offer similar training, but we don't need to be paying million-dollar companies to train employees that are already trained. That's what I would say. I disagree with both of those things.
You're up against more than just Atlantic Canada, though, right? I mean, other jurisdictions, North America, even internationally, there are similar subsidy programs, and there is a fight to lure these companies.
Maine isn't doing it, and some of the New England states. I just started doing some research on that. The problem here in New Brunswick is because we've never done it any other way. So the belief is that, well, we have to do it. If we don't do this, nobody will come. But I've got a different opinion on that, because if you have taxes that are, comparable with other jurisdictions, and if you have a good quality of life, and you have a good tax rate, or if we get rid of the provincial portion for small and medium-sized businesses, you get more people working, you get more money in people's wallets, and they spend more money. Whereas in New Brunswick, look at doctors. Look at the retention of doctors. I mean, doctors looking in from the outside to come to New Brunswick are looking at high taxes, highest in Canada, I think, on that part of it. And you can't retain doctors that way, and you can't keep businesses working that way if you're always catering to big business. And it's against the public interest of the citizens, always.
Did you pull the income tax, the elimination of the income tax from any other jurisdiction? Is this something used anywhere else? Or?
You see, small businesses, this is where it's coming from. It's coming from the people. Once again, like the people of New Brunswick that I talk to, they built this platform. They built it. And I'm going to know, I know a lot about it now, but as you know, I'm going to keep going and learning more and more about it. But you can't, the public has a distrust right now of politicians. They distrust because we throw money at these companies and we just lose it. We're always losing when you do that. It's a race to the bottom. So I'd like to see in New Brunswick where taxes are manageable, where people want to move here because of our taxes, because of our quality education and our quality health care. We've made New Brunswick really accessible to the very wealthy and the biggest companies nationally, but we haven't made it accessible to our small businesses and medium-sized, and they would all tell you that, because they tell me that every day.
You said a minute ago that the personal income tax, the highest bracket, which is the Glant government created, I guess 2 budgets ago now, was too high for doctors. Would you lower that? I mean, there's also an HST increase coming in next month.
I tell you what, I'd like to lower both of them. At first glance, I would love to. But money has to come from somewhere. But the problem, it all comes back to the $250 or $300 million of corporate welfare. That's where the money's going. The money's going to those big companies, and then we're taxing you, and we're taxing all the other citizens and small businesses. Just in the last couple of years, they've dealt with increases in the tax rates, increases in minimum wage, which I think is important. Ours is probably too low, but I mean, I'm just saying that they've been dealing with all these hikes, and these are small businesses. And I mean, I grew up in Blackville, so it's a very small little town. We've got a few small businesses, but they need to remain open. Do you know what I mean? There wouldn't be anything else there. I think we've been just doing this. It's a backward strategy, and it's almost like New Brunswick is addicted to it because it's been happening for as long as I can remember. I'm 38 years old. I'm guessing it's been happening before I was born even. So I want to change that. And as Premier of New Brunswick, I would eliminate the provincial portion of small and medium-sized businesses, and I would cut all these economic development agencies and get rid of $250 million right off the top.
So what happens to, I guess, what was Invest NB and is now Opportunities New Brunswick?
I'd get rid of that. I'd get rid of all of them because they're not working, and I'll tell you why. I read just recently, and this number, I couldn't find an exact estimate of it, but it's believed that the corporate welfare subsidies from last year were over $300 million, and in that we lost 6,800 jobs. So you couldn't look through that lens and say, oh, this strategy's working. This is working well. It can't work. It's a race to the bottom. It's just a mugs game between the other provinces, and we're all doing it, and we're all losing because of it. All three of these provinces, PEI, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia. Mm-hmm. There's a better way to do it, and it starts by making it so that people can actually survive and then grow their companies. It starts there.
I'd like to switch gears, and
Sure.
You grew up in rural New Brunswick in Blackville.
Yeah.
The issue with another issue with rural New Brunswick is healthcare delivery in terms of where to get access. Your former government, the Alward government, took steps to make changes to hospitals and potentially thought about changing some of those, repurposing some of those. Victor Boudreau, the current health minister, thought or made similar or acknowledged similar potential actions and then decided against that after a program review. Where do you sit on what we do with the province's hospitals, 26 hospitals? 26 hospitals.
Where we need to go with that is putting the healthcare back into the communities. I'm going to give you an example. Just looking at my hometown, I live about 500 feet from the Blackville Clinic, maybe a little more, maybe 1,000 feet. It's not far. They have a system where they have 2 doctors, good doctors, nice people. They've got some staff, but they're very limited in what they could do there. I'd like to see New Brunswick where that clinic would be like a primary health care center, which would have a couple of general practitioners and a few nurse practitioners, and more accessibility. Maybe doing things like dialysis, Maximus machine for asthmatics. I'd like to see them provide more service to the people, which in turn would keep people from going to the hospital, because that's the most expensive way to deliver it. I think it needs to go back into the community.
Okay, so if you decentralized, what happens to the existing hospitals then?
Well, a lot of them would have different things going on inside of them than that's currently going on inside of them. I'd have to look at the list. I mean, I thought there's 22. You said 26?
Well, there's 4 that are, I guess they were hospitals, and they maybe have downgraded to what is a 3rd tier, which might be actually a health clinic, but
yeah.
But I mean, it was a hospital at one point.
What I would say is, we already have enough infrastructure. We have a ton of it, right? What would change is what's happening inside of them. Look at the bigger hospitals: Fredericton, St. John, Moncton, 2 in Moncton, Miramichi, probably the one in Restigouche, maybe Bathurst. There's probably 7 or 8 hospitals there that I'm guessing much of what's going on there maybe would continue, but the other hospitals would change more. Probably less 24-hour emergencies, because we'd have some of those services in the communities, which would just keep people from going to the hospital. So that, yeah, there would be big changes. I don't have the model all mapped out, but what I would be doing would be causing some change there for sure. Absolutely.
So we talked taxes, we talked language, you talked healthcare. Are there
Yep.
any other significant changes that you'd propose that I guess need to be addressed now in terms of this province and going
Yeah,
forward?
well, there's I looked at I mean, I'm campaigning on grassroots, equality, ethics, healthcare, education, looking on the ethics side of it. New Brunswick needs a commission. They need like an ethics commission. We need a lobbying registry. We don't have a lobbying registry, so we don't know what people are asking for. We don't know what they're asking for. We find out later on that they got something, and then every year, I didn't mention this earlier, but we lose $50 million annually on unrecoverable or unpaid debts by corporations. That's every year, 50 million. You know, and that's why we need an ethics commission that would house the lobbying registration, MLA recall. I looked at that, and British Columbia has it. It's interesting. It would have to be set up so that it wouldn't be a big farce for people all the time, but it would have to be rigid. The other thing would be like disclosure of contracts and monies owing to the province. If you look in Quebec, they had the Charbonneau inquiry. I did a little bit of reading on that. I mean, New Brunswick's in a very vulnerable position, and the taxpayers have been vulnerable forever in New Brunswick because we don't have none of these things that prevent like full-out monopolies and corruptions and antitrust. I mean, the public's distrust is really high where it pertains to transparency and accountability. So I would be looking at that commission.
Right. I'm going to go to the phones now. We've got our first caller of the night is Pierrette in Moncton. Pierrette, do you have a question for Jake Stewart?
Yes. What's your job? What's your title?
I'm MLA for Southwest Miramichi Bay Devin.
And are you working for the people down there?
Absolutely.
Well, you seem like disturbing to me. I'm not talking to you like I have no offense, nothing like that, but I don't know why. Are you for the immigrant? Sorry, but I'm just asking you if you're happy with the immigrant in the province of New Brunswick right now.
I think the province of New Brunswick would do much better to have a larger population. I think that would make more opportunities, so I have no problem with that at all, actually.
Right. Pierrette, do you have any other questions?
And he's a lawyer?
No, he's the MLA for Miramichi currently.
So what's his job beside MLA? Like what he was before MLA?
Well, I was doing some teaching and...
Just like Sean Graham. Okay, have a good night.
Give us a history lesson, Jake. Before, I guess you went to St. Thomas University, correct?
Yeah, I went to St. Thomas and I did a Bachelor of Arts sociology major and history minor. And I went to University of Maine and studied education. And in the last semester, my son got sick and was at the IWK. I never actually finished, but I'm like so close, you know. I have nearly 6 years of university altogether, so. And almost, I have one degree and I really fell really short of just another one, so.
Yeah, I read you're also, growing up near Miramichi, you were a salmon guide as well for a short time, or?
Yeah, I started guiding when I was young, maybe 17 or 18. I don't know if it's 16 or 18 is the first. Might be 16, but 18 for sure. Guided a lot of people from England and Scotland and the United States, and a really good experience. I mean, my my grandfather was a DFO officer, a field supervisor, and my father an avid fly fisherman, and my grandfather, and it's a family tradition. I was 8 years old catching grilse and salmon on a fly rod. I wasn't a great caster when I was 8. I got really good by the time I was about 12, though. Did a lot of that.
Yeah. Hey, there are some questions about Atlantic salmon populations currently.
Yeah.
Actually, 2 days ago, Dominic LeBlanc, the Beausejour MP, became the fisheries minister. Do you have any concerns with the salmon population? And is there any way in your mind to correct that? I know there's some mandatory catch and release that's been in place for the last couple of years.
Yeah, I have displeasure with some of that, and many people do where I live. You see, conservation is good. I mean, I think conserving salmon is a really good initiative, don't get me wrong, but the numbers are never accurate because, like, give an example, Hurricane, was it Arthur 2 summers ago?
Mm-hmm.
That was Hurricane Arthur destroyed all of the nets in Millerton and in Southwest, Norwest, Dungarvan, took them all out, and it was literally more than a month plus before anything got put back in. So when the water is sky high and full of trees and dirty, and you're not counting anything for 6 weeks, and then you don't count after September, late September, and then all the local people say, well, in November there was like...
Jake, I'm going to have to cut you off. We're just
Sure,
going to go
sure,
to
sure.
commercials,
Sure.
and then we'll come right back with that
Yeah.
thought on Voice of the
Problem.
Province. And we're back with Jake Stewart, the most recent man in the race, the PC leadership race. Jake, you're number 6. I want you to give me some analysis on this. That's a pretty deep field.
Yep.
Do you believe all 6 will make it to the finish line in Convention Day on October 22nd? Or do you think there will be some jockeying in between where some will endorse others?
I think that's very possible. I don't have any insight into who or who might be doing it, but I have a feeling it won't end up 6 in the end.
Right.
Just a gut feeling.
So do you lobby others to join your team, or how does that work?
No, I haven't lobbied anybody. I mean, a lot of them had come to me because I hadn't announced, so I've spoken to pretty well all of them, over the last couple of months, but I think it's too early to talk about things like that. I mean, the month of June alone, I must have about 15 speaking engagements, and I'm trying to manage my constituency calendar with the campaign calendar, and I coach a little bit of baseball on the side, so I'm trying to make it all work, So, but I'm not going to be making any deals or doing any lobbying at this point. I really want to just get my message out there, build on it, get stronger with it, and just keep talking to the people and find out what they think about it and how we can fix it and amend it and all that. So.
Right, we've got a couple more callers, so I'm going to go back to the phone line. We've got Jack in St. Stephen. Jack, do you have a question for Jake?
Yes, I do. Hi, Jake. I just want to tell you, by the way, that we have met. I met you at a meeting with Aaron Allison up in the Miramichi back a few months ago. And I'm very pleased that you're running as leader of the PC party. I'm sorry to say that I have voted for the Liberals in the last election, but I will definitely be supporting you if you run, and if hopefully you'll get elected. I wanted to ask you what you felt about, I tuned in late, and I just wanted to hear a little bit more about how you feel about duality, and also the ambulance situation. I live in St. Stephen, and I am about a 2-minute walk away from the ambulance. I've had a couple of heart attacks, but I understand the ambulance can't come and pick me up unless they have Francophone on board. Very few Francophones here in St. Stephen, and I'm not sure why we need to have one on every ambulance that goes out. Now, I may be wrong on that, and I hope, if I am, I hope you can clarify and maybe give me a bit of an explanation on that. Thank you, and good luck.
Sure, Jack. I appreciate that, and thanks for your support as well. With the duality part, I don't think we need duality. It's not constitutional. It seems to be just, it's just costing us money. And I think we should always promote our cultures and really strongly promote them all, but we don't need to be spending unnecessary money, not at this stage in the game, in the province. With the paramedic situation, I know many paramedics, and they're very worried about the security of their positions. And, these are some of the most highly skilled people, trained professions we have in the province, and we have really good, really well-trained paramedics. But listen, I lived in South Korea. I spent 9 days in a hospital with people that could not speak English. I was never cared for better in my whole life than I was at that moment. They thought I had tuberculosis. It turns out I was allergic to some dust that was blowing in from from China. But anyhow, long story short, I was served very well. I think it's overdoing it in the paramedic situation. We have technology that could serve in those areas. I mean, look, if you're in Tracadie, I expect the paramedics in Tracadie to be Francophone New Brunswickers. I expect the same thing in Shippagan. I expect the same thing in Caracat. I was in a car accident as a 19-year-old in Alorville, and they were very French. They couldn't speak English very well. I was looked after very well. I just think we're overdoing it, and I think the language office and the office of the commissioner has been promoting those things, and I think they're divisive, and I don't agree with them at all.
There are new rules for ambulance services. I guess the deadline was extended there, right? Or there was some changes to language proficiency. Would you make changes to that? I mean, you said you're going to utilize technology, but I mean, what specifically what would you do as Premier?
Well, I don't agree with this thing where you have to have 50% of every truck has to be at least one bilingual or both bilingual. Like I don't even. To me, it's going way too far, because once again, we're not teaching. Certain parts of the province are not learning either language, not learning it well, not adequately. Official bilingualism in its infancy and in its most pure stage had nothing to do with the public becoming bilingual. And paramedics are the most well-trained people we have. If we can utilize technology in the distinct rural areas on the English side and the French, I think that's fine. Yeah.
I'm going to go back to the phone lines. We now have Jerry in St. George. Jerry, do you have a question for Jake?
Hi, Jake. First, let me start by thanking you for having the courage to stand up and tackle some of the issues that need to be spoken about in this province head-on. It's rare that we see a politician have that much courage, or I'm sure some people will say stupidity, but there's many of us out here that think you're doing the right thing for the province for the right reasons. I have a question about the ethics commissioner position that you're talking about. Would you give them the power for, under the right conditions, for recall, since we've seen Minister Horstman up lying about the judiciary and lying to you and your colleagues in the legislature? And we've seen the fiasco with ATCON, with massive frauds committed against the people of New Brunswick. Is your vision to have that position powerful enough and robust enough to tackle some of these issues and bring them forward?
Absolutely. I think the Ethics Commission with the thanks for that question, by the way. On the Ethics Commission, the recall legislation would have to be so that it's fair, but it would still have to be strong. And the Horstman situation, I think, would valid. I think if recall legislation was in place in New Brunswick right today, he would be going through that process. Whether he would be leaving or not, I couldn't say, because it would have to be independent and would have to be looked at independently, free of partisanship and free of all of that. As far as the ATCON and UMO Solar, or the Caracat Shipyard, we can talk forever on these issues. The legislation for the Ethics Commissioner would have to have full disclosure legislation, so that any monies owing to the province and those amounts and how long they've been overdue, those should be known to the public, because it's the public's money. And this is why New Brunswick needs this legislation, because we've never done it this way. If you look at our net debt, if you look at the $50 million in losses just annually, and if you look at the shipyard lately, which is going to be 40 more plus, it's pertinent that we have that legislation in place and that commission to act as that body on the best interests of the taxpayers. What's in the public interest, we have to manage accountability and transparency for the public.
Thanks for the call. Jake, just want to go back to who's backing who in this race. Have you had any MLAs step up and endorse you currently, and do you plan to bring any more on board?
No, none have supported me to this date. I have to speak to, a lot of them. I've only spoken to a few, and some of them were already on somebody else's team. I'm the last one to announce, so I'm probably a little late, but that's okay. I'm going to go through that order, and I'm going to meet them all. I'm going to reach out, going to ask for their support, and going to go from there.
You had a couple former MLAs at your nomination, Jim Parrott in particular. I think another one as well.
Robert was there.
Robert.
Yeah.
They endorse you then? Or?
Yeah. Tilly O'Neill as well on the local level. No, I'm getting some good support. I'll tell you, I had 78 emails from Thursday to about maybe Monday, and I've got a few since. I don't know what the number is, but people really, the public is ready for a politician to come along and actually work in the best interests of the public. That's what we're ready for. And you know, you hear a lot that people are upset with the PC party and the Liberal Party because they both governed for long periods of time. But I think that you just have to work in what's in the public interest. And the issues you and I have spoken about tonight these are the issues brought to me by the people. And they built this, and when I looked at all the issues, when I started writing them down, I realized these are the issues that nobody ever touches. And I thought that I might be late joining this race, but I feel good about my chances, very good about them, and I'm excited because somebody in New Brunswick has to step forward and put these items on the table in a very public forum, and I'm going to do that.
Where do you see your place in this race? You know, you're a little bit of an anti-establishment kind of candidate. You came into Rocky theme music, seemingly an underdog role. I mean, what is your place in this race?
I would say that my place is very unpredictable to the people in the establishment, and in particular, I say that because they have no idea to what level I'm campaigning or how I'm campaigning. This is going to be a citizen-centered engagement, grassroots, boots on the ground, town halls, meet and greets, old-fashioned style, but very modern thinking for the people. And I think that I think I would be a dark horse in some ways, but in other ways, I very much feel I have a chance to win, or I wouldn't be in the race. So it's important for the people to realize that as well. But I feel good. I feel good about my chances. I'm excited.
You've talked about not wanting banners, posters, that kind of glitzy campaign. That you're still going to need $10,000 to officially enter the race. Yeah. How do you plan to raise that money?
We just opened our bank account yesterday in the afternoon. So we'll be fundraising over the next couple of weeks. But my campaign is different. I mean, if somebody comes and says, Jake, I want to support you, and all they have is $10, perfect. It's not about like getting 10 grand from 10 people. This is the public's campaign that I'm leading right here. This is the public agenda. This is what was told to me, and I'm taking it around, and that's how we're going to fundraise as well.
What it really comes down to is getting people to the convention floor. Absolutely. Or getting it to the polling stations that will be scattered around. There isn't one in Miramichi. The closest one would be Bathurst, I believe, and Fredericton second. Is there any concerns with signing members up, the membership fee in order to get people onto the floor? We've heard that from some people so far.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are upset with the fee, and a lot of people in sort of Restigouche and Campbellton and the Acadian Peninsula and Miramichi that really would have liked to have a satellite pole. But these are decisions that are out of my hands. The PC party, when you leave the Anderson Bridge, you leave my constituency, and you drive all the way to the Quebec border, and it's Liberal all the way down. So I mean, hindsight's 20/20. I think it would have been good to have polls there, but it's buses. This is a numbers game. This is about, I'm not going to sleepwalk through this campaign. Like I need you to know that, and I need the public to know that if there are candidates that want to sleepwalk through this campaign, I'm not going to be one of them. I'm working for the people of New Brunswick. This is their agenda, and I'll take it as public as I possibly can at every instance. And by the way, I want to come back on this show again.
Okay, it sounds good. I want to switch topics for the last 5 minutes of the show and speak. You're the energy critic for the Progressive Conservatives. There was a decision last week by the Liberal government to extend indefinitely a moratorium on shale gas or hydraulic fracturing in specific. So maybe your initial thoughts on that, and then we'll go into some more detailed questions.
Initial thoughts. It was a moot point. I mean, the damage is done on that file. And as energy critic, I've been very clear for about 1.5 years now, or a little under that. I really believe that industry is gone for good. I firmly believe that because, and a lot of times the public maybe not realize that these companies, when they come in, they bring resources, they bring assets, they bring equipment, they have schedules elsewhere, they have leases elsewhere. It's a big undertaking for them to actually come here, and the preparation for them to get here is intense. And the moratorium, I don't think it extending it. I mean, at my core, I think, oh my God, what a waste of time, you know. But at the same time, it's a moot point because they've already done the damage. The current government has put policies in place on not just natural gas, but on the pipeline. Look at the pipeline is in such turmoil right now, and I just think that they really axed everything. I think they just did it their own way, and they created a lot of carte blanche authority-making legislation. And to me, I really question whether it's even possible to have natural gas in New Brunswick.
Right. Playing devil's advocate, I mean, the resource is still in the ground. The industry potentially could come around. You know, is this not the time to maybe get the environmental checks in place and then, you know, maybe in the future, maybe not anytime soon, but sometime in the future it could...
I would hope that all of that's being done. Absolutely. It's my hope that the First Nations piece and the environmental pieces, I mean, I hope they're looking at it every day, but as a member of the former government, you know, I know with our blueprint and our commissions, and there was so much stuff we put in place that we used the best practices around the world and North America. And like when the hydraulic report came out, I just didn't see the sense in it. And I didn't look at it from a partisan, oh, you know, I'm PC, they're liberal, so I hate it. It wasn't like that for me. I just felt that it was just a waste of time. I guess that's how I looked at it.
Is there better relationships to be built? I mean, I was in Rexton when I guess a community literally broke out in riot over the industry, and it was just exploration at that point. I mean, does that not signal to you that there's still some problem here in take-up for the industry? I
had a phone call today from a friend, and she told me that her son, a 17-year-old child, made First Nations moccasins in his classroom today. He has like a heritage, one of his classes is heritage and culture. He was so excited when he came home that he was able to make the moccasins, and I thought about it. I mean, we've talked about these school buses and how I wondered how a child would learn why they can't sit in the same bus. One of the biggest failures of New Brunswick, and it's one of the greatest failures we have, is we've never united our people, all our people. And that's why, I don't know if you've looked, but the hashtag for my campaign is One New Brunswick. I'm aiming at equality. That's the biggest file I'm running on. Everywhere I go, I'm going to be interviewed on language, and that's fine because I have lots to say about it. But we need cultural policies. We need our Francophone, First Nations, immigrant populations, Anglophones. We need to have schools reaching out more and visiting and working. We need to bring our children together, and that's where it starts.
On that note, that's all we have all the time we have on Voice of the Province. Jake, thanks for coming back, and I guess we'll see you again.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks
Good to
for
see
watching
you.
at home.